Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play Pause Rewind. We are back on the Marvel train this week. We're talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Niles, how have your last 2 weeks been?
Oh, terrific. Just as always, I'm glad to be hanging out on a Labor Day, just kicking back and talking
Yeah.
about a movie.
Yeah, man, I haven't worked since Tuesday, so that's been fun.
Son of a bitch.
I
You
took,
think you're better than me?
no, I just took some days off. Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, it's been good since we last spoke about the Green Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to talk about Shang-Chi today. And it's great that we got two white guys sitting here talking about this movie.
Yeah, yeah, so I think both of us on a very surface level will say it seemed respectful to the culture. I'm not going to get further into it than that because I don't know, and I don't want to do it wrong. So it seemed,
Me too.
one, it's very long overdue representation, and two, it seemed reverent enough. That being said, the film does not have a release date in China yet because of the racist history of the comics. I believe that is specifically talking about the Mandarin himself, because if you will recall, in Iron Man 3, when the Mandarin was the villain of that film, they went a very different direction with the character because of the racist history of that villain. So they did a whole new thing, and now we have the actual Mandarin in this movie, but at least from what I can tell, they avoided the racist stereotypes associated with the character. But again, I'm not the most knowledgeable on that topic. But that aside,
Yes.
we'll do non-spoilers for about 5 minutes, probably, and then we'll jump into spoilers for the rest of the episode. What did you think of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings?
Oh, I mean, I loved it. Just like what you were just saying, this did not feel like a misrepresentation, or overly westernized or anything like that. But of course, we're not experts on that. But yeah, I really did appreciate this movie. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I knew to expect it was a Marvel movie, so I knew to expect to have good storyline, to have some good solid action, and like probably some good character development and some references back to older things that happened in the universe. And it checked all of those boxes, and I feel like it did a lot more than that too. I feel like it just like it was pretty to look at. And Dylan, just to let you know, as we get more into this, when I watched this movie, when I was buying my ticket online, I did it really rushed. So I thought I was getting a seat at the back of the theater, but it was the front row.
Oh, no. Were you high?
So like, no, was I?
Yes,
Then
when you were buying your ticket.
No, I was not. No,
You were just rushed.
I was just rushed. Like, we just got back from a camping trip, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, I want to watch this movie and I want to catch this showtime. So I just kind of rushed through the process. And I mean, I had the whole row to myself, so I could,
Well,
it
yeah,
was
you
nice.
got
And
the
I got
worst
front-
row in the theater, so of course.
Yeah. So maybe that like kind of like, that could have influenced some of the things about the movie for me, because like some moments I thought like, oh, the action's like way too quick. I didn't really catch that, but for the most part, I thought it was really stunning to look at. It was beautiful. And I think the director did a great job with it, and all the actors. I think it was just a terrific cast all around. All the characters were really interesting to me, and as a fan of public transportation as well, I will say I appreciated the fight on the bus a lot.
Oh, good.
I'm part of this Facebook group called like Numtots. It's like called a Numtot page, and it's like new urbanist memes for trans-oriented teens. Clearly, I'm not a teenager anymore, but I joined that many years ago, and it's just I would say Numtot approved.
Okay, I was wondering what that meant in the notes. Just so you know, you're a little choppy on the video, but hopefully
Great.
we get through that. Yeah, I also really like this movie. I didn't know much about this character at all, and I didn't know what to expect other than what you expect typically from a Marvel movie. And I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought I would have a good time, and I had a better time than expected. I think that exceeded my expectations a lot, actually. in a lot of ways, it feels more like its own thing than most of the MCU movies do. A lot of I appreciated how much longer the shots were in the action scenes. We really got a better chance to appreciate the choreography, which was also very impressive. Performances were really good. And I like Shang-Chi a lot, and I like Katie, his friend, played by Awkwafina.
Yeah.
And
she was hilarious. I loved her.
Yeah, and I haven't been the hugest fan of Awkwafina's work in the past. I liked her in Crazy Rich Asians, but other than that, I haven't totally gravitated towards her performances. No shade being thrown, just wasn't for me. But this character I liked a lot. I also think we'll talk about more in spoilers, but the Mandarin himself was more interesting as a villain than I thought he was going to be. And let's see, what else? I also want to make note that Simu Liu, who plays Shang-Chi, kind of manifested this role for himself. He in 2018.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2018, he just kind of tweeted at Marvel Studios, "When are we going to talk about Shang-Chi?" And then a year later, he was announced as playing the character. So that's kind of cool. And
wow.
Yeah, and unlike you, I did not see the movie in the front row, so I had I think a better visual experience for the action scenes. And there were a couple moments where I couldn't tell as clearly what was going on, but I don't think it was a problem throughout the film.
Yeah.
I also will say there were a couple moments where the green screen compositing looked a little bleh, but overall, I think it was a much nicer looking movie than a lot of the grayer Marvel fare is. I'm sure people's mileage will vary on that. There always seems to be a whole lot of discourse around that online, but I really enjoyed this movie, and I think we'll talk more in spoilers about it, but its connections to the MCU were fun, but minimal, and it was allowed to stand on its own 2 feet and introduce us to these new characters. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say, right now, I'm glad that this one, I saw it in theaters. We kind of talked about this before with Black Widow, and how that was streaming service release and also in the theaters, and this one was just a theater exclusive. And I'm so glad that I went and saw it in the theaters, because it was such it was a much better experience than it would have been just sitting on my couch at home. I think. Yeah. I was able to just get more absorbed in the story, and I'm just it's nice to just go see those movies again out in the theaters, even if I did have not the best seat.
Right, and it's crushing it at the box office. It's on track for a $74 million Labor Day weekend, which is half its budget already. And I was scrolling through Twitter earlier, and a film critic I follow there, I believe his name is Brendan Hodges, he made a point that while Shang-Chi's success will not necessarily inform movie studios of the power of this diversity and representation, if it failed, they would take that lesson. So the success of this movie is very important in that sense as well, for increased representation, because if it had failed, as studios always do, they would take the wrong lesson and say, well, better not have that sort of representation again, which is stupid, but that's how they think, because So very happy to see it succeeding. A brand new character who no one knows. Marvel's first Asian protagonist, which is embarrassingly overdue, but it's crushing it. So that's awesome to see. And with that,
that's terrific.
You have anything else before we hop into spoilers, or you want to just go for it?
Let's just dive on in. Let's get talking about it.
Okie dokie.
I mean, I think right off the bat, one of the best spoilers of the movie was, we didn't even really talk about it just yet, but the Mandarin reveal of Ben Kingsley's character being
Trevor
brought back.
Slattery. My name is Trevor. I am an actor.
So funny. I didn't expect it, but I should have, and it was great.
Yeah, no, have you seen the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. It's on YouTube, I think. But Marvel used to do these one-shot things, and people were pissed about him in Iron Man 3. I wasn't. I thought it was a really clever twist. But a lot of people wanted the Mandarin, and they were mad that they did not get the Mandarin. But the one-shot, All Hail the King, is a sequel to Iron Man 3, and it follows Trevor Slattery in prison, and then it ends with a representative of the Ten Rings abducting him from prison at gunpoint to go meet the real Mandarin.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's
you should
neat.
look at it. It's pretty cool. But I, like you, was not expecting this appearance. But when they were in the like little catacombs or wherever they were, or the prison area, and then we heard the noise, and they go towards. I'm like, no way. And then,
What else could it have been? Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
oh,
what a
so
great
cool.
comedic relief.
Yes.
I enjoyed him. And then when he's playing dead at the end, and his little creature friend Morris is all sad. He's like, "It's just a performance. Just get down here and play dead with me."
Yeah, I love it, and I love how they're bringing back like those recurring characters like Ben Kingsley's character. But I don't know if you noticed this, but the guy on the bus who was filming the fight,
the streamer.
The streamer. That was this. I believe that was the same guy from the Spider-Man Homecoming. When he was like doing like this zip like going around the city.
Oh, is he the guy who's like do a flip?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
I'd
think
have to
so. I
rewatch
think that's
that.
the
That's
guy.
funny.
But yeah, that's his second time in the MCU, and it's like, oh, it was so funny. Like the comedic relief points. We were introduced to these two characters, and it's like, oh, those were recurring characters.
I
cool.
love too that when the guy is streaming the fight on the bus, in typical like influencer fashion, he has to make it about himself. And he's like,
Yeah.
I did take some martial arts in my past, so I'm going to be judging this fight. But before we go down, like, recurring character rabbit hole, Shang-Chi himself, or Sean, as he's going by at the beginning of this movie, I think was a really fun protagonist. I liked rooting for him. I liked the performance a lot. I like that he and Katie are just kind of friends who like to chill and get drunk and do karaoke, and then he's swept back up into this world that he wanted to leave behind. I really enjoyed his journey, and it's different from the other heroes we've seen in this series. He's just like, because it's an origin story, but also not really. Like, we see his whole origin, but at the start of the movie, he's got all his skills. He's already left that life behind. He's kind of dragged back into it unwillingly.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I feel like in so many origin movies, they always have to tell like how they got the skills, how they got that, and they got to show like a training montage of it. But this movie took a different approach where it was like, he's already got that. We'll just do it in flashbacks. We'll just do it like really quick. We don't need to talk about it a lot. This is more a story focused on like character and not necessarily like training. It's more about him realizing his potential and, coming to the defense of his family and coming to the defense of the world ultimately too.
and there is a lot of backstory and lore that's present in this movie, but it doesn't dive into it as much as it could. I think it shows us what we need to know for this narrative and these characters. Like, we see Shang-Chi's past with his father and his mother, but only what we need to in order to get the emotional like arc for him. And we see the Mandarin's backstory as well, but it's kind of like, it's like, this is who he was, and then what's really important, though, is his relationship with his wife, because that's his motivation for this movie. Like, the 10 rings themselves are awesome, but they are never really talked about, and their origin is not mentioned at all. Yeah, and so, like, the movie could have taken a lot of time to explain what the 10 rings are, where they came from, but it doesn't matter for this story. Like, it seems from post-credits, we will get that, but it didn't matter for here. So how did you feel about that? Did you get the information you felt you wanted, or would you have liked to see more exposition, sort of?
I would have liked to maybe see like a little bit more explanation. Not a ton, but maybe just like a tiny bit. Maybe even just like an offhand remark or something like that. Like two lines. Give me 2 lines about it. And I think that would have been enough. But I understand why they chose that route. They wanted to focus more on Shang-Chi. They wanted to focus more on the characters and what, their relationships. So, I didn't really have a problem with it. And like you were just saying, the post-credit scene, it sets up the premise for Shang-Chi's next appearance in the MCU, which I bet will focus on the origins of the 10 rings. It will focus on like what they are, where they came from, and whatever that is. Well, let me ask you this, actually, Dylan. What do you think is the origin? Do you know? Because I have no idea.
I don't, but I I think they are different than they are in the comic books. I think in the comic books, they're like rings on fingers.
Right. Yeah.
And I think they're purely magical in the comics, and these seem more technology based, like high tech alien technology, and especially with the post credit scene and Wong saying that like they sent out a beacon to somewhere, we don't know where. So it seems like they are from somewhere else, and it's interesting that in all the years the Mandarin used them, they did not send out that beacon. It was specifically when Shang-Chi inherited them. So I'm interested to see, one, who they called to, two, why now. But yeah, I like that we still have mystery around this thing that was a big part of this movie too. It's like not all threads have been resolved by the end of it. And
and speaking. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
Well, I was just gonna like kind of take us in a different direction of like talking about, because we were just talking about post-credit scenes and loose ends, and the other post-credit scene, sets up, what his sister is gonna do with the Ten Rings Empire.
Ten Rings too, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be neat to see, like how she transforms the organization and what she kind of does and what her role will be moving towards in the MCU. Yeah.
I was at first surprised by that. I was like, oh, I thought she was actually just dismantling the operation like they thought she was. But then if you think back to earlier in the movie when she's talking about how she set up like her fighting ring and all that stuff, her line to Katie is, well, my dad wouldn't let me be part of his empire, so I built my own. And now she has an opportunity to rule her dad's empire, so she took it. And I, like Shang-Chi, I am unfamiliar with her character. Maybe she is an antagonist figure down the road, or maybe she is, like Marvel seems to be doing a lot recently, making a morally gray tier of characters, like your Sharon Carter. Maybe she will operate in that realm as well, where sometimes on the side of good, sometimes not. But
or like Wanda too, kind of misguided or something like that. Morally gray, like you were saying,
misguided. Like, have you seen the most recent What If?
Yes, the most recent What If, Doctor Strange,
like Stephen Strange in that, So
yes, in the fourth, yes, that was a good one.
It was good. I liked it. But I like that the Ten Rings still exists. I also like the way the Ten Rings was portrayed in this movie, and the Mandarin himself. They were bad, but they weren't just cartoonishly villainous,
Yes, and I mean Marvel. I think they consistently do a good job of making character or villains with a sympathetic cause, or at least making them appear more sympathetic to the audience. You can relate to them. It's not just like, I'm a big bad guy, I want to unleash evil upon the world. It's like, well, no, I actually have a reason. I'm trying to reconnect with my wife. I love my wife. She changed me, and I want to get back to that. And I appreciate the Mandarin as a character. Like, I thought, the actor did a great job. I would butcher his name, so I'm not going to try and pronounce it. But he was fantastic, and I thought, he was a very interesting character, and he made for a good villain too. When you have that kind of internal family struggle, I think that creates an interesting dynamic, father and son. Even when the sister was involved, it's like, oh, that's very interesting. Like, I just really enjoyed it. Yeah,
right. And I like that this is where we see him, because we see in the sort of prologue the conquering, like, warlord version of him. But then for the main part of the story, he's beyond that. He's done that already. Like, it's not his motivation. He doesn't want to take over the world, really. He just wants to, he heard his wife's voice, and he wants to, what he thinks is save her. And of course, he's being manipulated the entire time. And one thing I liked about him is, he is too far gone at this point for Shang-Chi to bring him back in time. But as soon as he realizes, like, I fucked up, like, I've been played, immediately it's just like, okay, I'm going to give you these rings so that you can do something with them, and then I'm done because I messed up. Obviously, like, he wasn't defiant till the end. he realized very quickly as soon as the creature comes out, he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I appreciated that moment too. Like, I will say that I think there was sometimes too much slow-mo in this movie. It wasn't like Zack Snyder excessive sometimes, but at moments I was like, okay, we can speed this up. But like that slow-mo exchange between him and his father where he gives him the rings was, I think that was perfect. That's exactly what we needed. We didn't need any more than that. He just kind of saw the error of his ways and he redeemed himself in a tiny bit of saying, I fucked up. Take it, please. Just make this right,
Yeah, and I saw some criticism for his redemption because it's like he was clearly an abusive father who caused a lot of trauma to his children. But I didn't even see that as redemption, really. I just saw it as him recognizing, like, oh, no, I got played. I should have listened, and I will try to do one right thing before I die. And because I don't think it's like on the same level as a Darth Vader redemption. And on that note, it's not like Vader was some saint that is more redeemed.
Yeah,
than,
Vader wasn't
like, yeah. So it's like that criticism seems levied a little inconsistently here. But do you view it as a true redemption or more just a momentary like I see what's going on?
Yeah, I don't see it as a redemption, but I see it just as like a moment of, recognition of his errors, of like just saying, like we were just saying, I fucked up. Please take over. And at the end of the day, they still got to kind of accept, when they're kind of pushing those lanterns off into the water. It's just kind of like saying, well, we have to come to terms with the past. He did some horrible things. He was kind of a bad guy and all that jazz. But we still loved him for who he was. He was our father, and but he was abusive and not very good a guy.
Yeah, well, but that's part of Shang-Chi's arc too, is accepting and reconciling all of where he's come from, and that includes his father. And so it's not them like signing off on his abuse and accepting what he did to them. It's just them accepting that this is part of where they came from, the good and the bad. And that's it's more complicated than just saying like I forgive abuse. No, they didn't. It's relationships with family members are more complicated than that. But but I like that was his motivation throughout the movie. Not like he didn't really care about the village and destroying it. He was just like, I will destroy this village because I have to get to what I want to do. And but passing that note off to the rest of the 10 rings too, I enjoyed that as soon as there is a common enemy that they realize, oh, we can't deal with this. They're like, okay, yeah, let's team up because what the hell else are we gonna do?
Yeah, because he's like, well, we're fucked. Yeah, we gotta team up at this point. I don't want my soul to be sucked out of my body.
Yeah, and at first I was sad the Mandarin died because I felt there was more interesting stuff for him to do in the future. But thinking about it, with the post-credits scene and the sister taking over the 10 rings, it's like, if the Mandarin was still around, that would probably be less impactful, so it's good that now that has room to breathe as well. And we get to see a different shade of the 10 rings. And the Mandarin, a great villain. I think one of my higher tier in the Marvel villain category, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely kind of felt on the same level as, like, maybe Killmonger or, like,
Thanos.
I don't know about Thanos. Yeah, Thanos maybe even, but, definitely better than Ultron.
He's better than Ultron. He's better than whatever the guy's Dreykov. He's better than Dreykov. So
yeah, and way better than the villain of Iron Man 3. But I didn't mind that villain, I suppose.
I didn't mind Aldrich Killian, but he was kind of forgettable, I suppose. Guy Pearce is just a good actor. Maybe that's why I don't mind.
Yeah, he's really good. But one other thing that I want to bring up with this film is that with all the seriousness that was going on with these characters and like with Shang-Chi and all the stuff that he was doing, there was some really good comedy through this movie too.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about the guy who's filming the fight on the bus. Hilarious. I thought that was so funny. Ben Kingsley's character had some great moments too, especially with like the little creature. Morris is his name.
Morris, yeah. I love the initial introduction of Morris. How relieved he is that other people can see.
It's like, oh my god, yay! I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And like even Wong, whenever Wong kind of showed up, it was like, yes, awesome.
This movie just like in very small doses adds a lot of flavor to Wong as a character.
Yeah.
Because in Doctor Strange and in Infinity War and Endgame, I guess he shows up there too. It's like he seems kind of like a serious dude. Actually, he is just like jamming out to music in Doctor Strange, but he very much is like, I'm just gonna go to fight night. I'm gonna get drunk and do karaoke. He has a whole
He doesn't care.
He has a whole secret life that we just did not know about, and that is so wonderful. But,
right? He's hilarious in this film. It definitely adds to that comedic character that he is in the universe, and you know, it'll be nice to see him show up in the next like Spider-Man and in Doctor Strange. You know, it'll be great to see his character come back, and you know, I love Benedict Wong. He's so funny. And there were other funny moments, like even Awkwafina's character, Katie, she was some good comedic relief to like Shang-Chi's very serious nature. Like on the plane, like when he was explaining like his origins, and then all of a sudden the flight attendant interrupts them.
Oh, that was so funny. That was a great like change of diegesis into like we expect just like this voiceover, and then it's like, but also, dude, you can't say that shit on a plane. My God, it really.
He was saying all that really loud, and everyone's just kind of like.
Yeah, everyone was just minding their own
phones.
business. The guy next to Awkwafina was just not paying attention. I'm like, the guy's put on a lot on the table here.
You're revealing your identity and your secret identity, and you're talking about all this stuff with your dad. But yeah, I thought that was so funny, and yeah, Katie was a great source of comedic relief. Like when she bet against him in the fight, I thought that was funny. Didn't expect that. And like her kind of quips when they were doing the bus fight scene, I thought were funny too. So she was great in this film, I'd say. So you know, there was a good balance of those comedic elements and like the very dramatic elements. Like overall, I would say I don't have very much to complain about with this movie. You know?
No, same. And I with Katie, I appreciated that the plot doesn't leave her behind as it gets to the big action climax. With a lot of these movies and movies in general, when it gets to the end, like the supporting cast is kind of shoved to the side a little bit in favor of the hero of the story stepping up. But like she has her own little training montage. She has a very big part to play in their eventual success. And it seems like when Wong comes to get Shang-Chi at the end, he's like, you too. So it seems like she will have a bigger role to play in his story as well. I also enjoyed that there is like a little bit of romantic tension between the two, but they're just friends, at least at this point. So that's nice. It's fine to just have platonic, positive relationships in these movies. Although Marvel is very sexless at this point. Like,
do you mean just like graphically, or like what do you mean?
No, I mean like everyone's single or married or dead, and it's just like it's to an extent that it's weird. Like that's fine. I'm not saying everybody needs a romance subplot in their movies, but it's like almost every relationship that was happening ended, or you know, it's just odd.
Yeah.
It's like you can have a little. Some characters
totally
should be
agree.
like in the dating scene and stuff like that, but it's not it's just a weird observation, and it feels very much like a Disney mandate to me. That's just my read. Because
I was just gonna say, it's kind of like it feels like, you know, they'll show like really intense violence and like you know, Iron Man getting stabbed and stuff, and it's like kind of like, I guess, family friendly because it's Disney, you know, and these are superheroes at the end of the day. But then there's like there's not a lot of romance sometimes, and you know, I don't say I need a lot of romance in like Marvel movies, but I would say sometimes it is okay to have that romantic partner.
Right.
And I think that they have the door open for that moving down the line with Katie and Shang-Chi.
And I didn't even mean it needed to be them, but it's just an interesting shift because, like, think back to Iron Man 1. One of the first notable acts Tony Stark does is bring a reporter critical of him home and has a one-night stand with her. And then, like,
Yeah,
she's a
that's right.
recurring character who gives him shit in the next movie. And once Disney stepped in, like, that stuff is gone after that point.
True.
Which is just, weird. It's a weird shift.
Yeah, that's true. It feels like they're kind of taking it a little more seriously or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't know. That is an interesting observation.
Let's,
Oh,
sorry. Go for it.
Oh, speaking of, like, some of those comedic side characters there, like with Wong and stuff, just shifting gears a little bit, I liked the Abomination appearance.
I did too.
It was nice to see that in the trailer, so I knew it was going to happen, of course. Like, everyone knew it was going to happen once they saw the trailer, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But, that was just neat to see that character, and, where do you think this is going with Abomination?
Well, for context, for those who haven't seen that movie, Abomination is one of the two villains from The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton, and that character has not been seen since. And the other villain was General Ross, who has had a recurring role in the movies. He's returned, but I could see Abomination coming back if they ever do more stuff with Bruce Banner's Hulk. I could also see him not coming back, and this was just a fun little thing, because at the end of the fight, they're in the training room or the locker room, Jesus, and Wong opens up the portal, and I looked through the portal, and he's bringing him back to like a high-tech prison, so it might be on the raft or something, and I think maybe Wong just like breaks him out so they can go do fight night together, and then brings him back.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I think Abomination is on the raft, that like big floating prison that Ross has.
Right, isn't that like the whole Thunderbolts kind of dealio?
Actually, that's probably where he'd come back if he comes back. General Ross is like villainous team of Avengers, the Thunderbolts, because
their own kind of like little Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of like their Suicide Squad. Because General Ross, it's called the Thunderbolts because in the comics he is General Thunderbolt Ross. So, and I think he turns into a Red Hulk at some point every now and then.
Oh, so, interesting.
Yeah.
That would be that would be interesting to see that old man become a monster.
Yeah. I love how much of an asshole that character is. He's just so needlessly mean. But yeah, I liked the Abomination thing, and I liked the creature design too. They were very otherworldly, especially Morris. Like, he's just a little thing without a face.
I loved all those little mystical creatures. And I was kind of curious, as I'm sure a lot of people were, like, if these mythical creatures kind of had like any kind of connection to like Chinese mythology and stuff like that. And so I looked up a few of them. I found like a few articles, and so I'm sure that there's like probably some ambiguity with some of these. But I loved all these mythical creatures. Like, Morris was so fun. He was that little furry, six-legged, two-winged creature. And the articles that I found, it sounded like that he's actually based on this primordial god called Di Jiang, I think it's pronounced, who is a personification of just chaotic force that birthed everyone. So he's just supposed to be like just this chaotic thing that causes confusion and stuff. I think that's perfect for him. He's like so weird looking. And I think that was so cool. And the nine-tailed foxes, I actually saw this article. It's so funny that like people were confusing that with like the Pokemon version of that. There's like the Pokemon called like Six Tails or like 12 Tails or something like that. And like, but it's this nine-tailed fox, and what the articles that I found, it was like it's this creature called a Hulujing, and they're just these mischievous spirits who kind of like like their presence interprets like dire warnings or like omens of great fortune or something like that.
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of neat, and I like the guardian lions. They were cool too.
They were really cool looking.
Yeah, and I mean, as the if you could put two and two together about like guardian lions and like Chinese culture, I feel like, but they're like the guardians of sacred places. And actually, when I was looking them up and researching them just before this episode, I found that they were actually originally an important part of Buddhism in China as protectors of like Dharma, which is like the inherent nature of reality. So like they're good guys.
Yeah.
And then there was that horse-like creature that had that eye connection with Ben Kingsley. I thought that was a cool looking one too.
Okay.
He was he had those horns like the dragon features and all that stuff, and it sounded like, from what I found, it sounds like he just kind of accompanies deity. He could be two things, at least from what I read. They accompany deities as pets. These horses, they're like called Quinlan. Probably butchering that a little bit, but they're also their presence was thought to signal the arrival of an immortal or like a member of royalty or something like that. But I also like the Chinese dragon too. The Chinese dragon was really cool.
Yeah, and I looked that up because I had heard this.
Oh, yeah.
And I had heard this a little while back, but I wanted to look further into it. Because Western dragons are associated with fire. They're fire breathing, and they're like beasts to be conquered and slain. The Chinese dragon. And maybe this extends to Japan as well, which is why the dragons in Breath of the Wild and Zelda like come out of the water and are super peaceful. Chinese dragons are strongly associated with water and weather in past popular religion, and they are also a symbol of power, strength, and good luck. So seeing a dragon in Chinese culture is a sign of good fortune, unlike in like Europe where it means you're gonna die. So just. Yeah,
that's super cool. I love those Chinese dragons. He was so cool. He was such a neat little.
It was really
little
neat.
addition.
And I loved too that even when they call him the guardian dragon, I think, and the guardian dragon, I don't know what sex it was meant to be, but when it comes out, like it's helpful to them. It's extremely helpful, but it's not like game over. It doesn't win the fight for them. They have to protect it, and it needs help. And it almost dies. Like its soul almost gets sucked out. So
yeah, right. Yeah, it was like it wasn't just like a god. Everyone still had to help it. Yeah, I like that about that.
The tension was not lost. In fact, when it was there and it was getting its soul sucked out, my anxiety was even higher because it's like, oh no, they're gonna lose their like this protective spirit of this village that's so sad. Like this place is gonna fall, and
that would have got to me. I would have been like, no, if they actually killed it.
I was so sad when the old guy got his soul sucked out, the old archer guy.
Actually, I wasn't expecting that. I thought he was going to make it to the end.
I really enjoyed Michelle Yeoh's character as well. She has a much more minor presence in the movie than I expected because it's Michelle Yeoh, but she's great. And she was a great pseudo mentor at the end, sort of pushing the characters the last step of where they needed to go. It was
nice. Absolutely, yeah. I think she did a great job, and they did a great job with the casting on this too, because even the younger versions of the actors themselves, I thought looked really similar overall. Then again, I'm not a great good judge of face sometimes, but I thought they did a great job with the casting, and Michelle Yeoh, she did a great job. In her Nan role as well. You still there?
I am. It sounded like we were losing you for a second.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, the soul suckers were pretty intimidating as well. I thought it was. Because they're only the specific weapons could do anything against them, so that added some tension as well. And we've talked about the fight scenes before, but I really enjoyed that fight in the forest between the Mandarin and his future wife. I thought it was a very pretty fight in a very visually stimulating environment. Really great.
It felt like those classic kung fu movies. I haven't watched a ton of them, obviously, but what was it Crouching Tiger, Flying Lotus. Am I messing that up?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That's what it was. But I remember that movie. that one was so just beautiful. That iconic scene of them like fighting on the bamboo stalks and they're swaying super far over to the side, and like it was beautiful. It just felt really reminiscent of that. And I,
also starring Michelle Yeoh, by the way.
Oh, that's really neat. I didn't know that.
Her and Chow Yun-fat.
That's really cool. So they brought some of those people back. I love that. Just pivoting really quick back to the Soul Suckers, just because of trying not to spoil What If and stuff, but to me, I just kind of noticed this all of a sudden. It just flashed in my head. There's kind of a lot of imagery of those tentacle monsters this phase,
That is true, yeah.
We have it in, two episodes of What If, not to spoil too much about it. And then we have these soul suckers who are kind of flying around. They got these tentacle things. I think that's kind of interesting that we got this kind of recurring theme.
And there was some significant soul sucking itself in What If as well.
That's true.
So
I don't know. That's kind of neat that they got that recurring theme flowing through this phase.
Yeah. It seems like I bet that the tentacle thing is going to be part of the culmination of What If, and maybe even Multiverse of Madness as well. It seems like they're intentionally bringing it up several times throughout that show. So
yes, absolutely.
I did want to mention as well, I think I had said briefly in non-spoilers, but this is definitely an MCU movie. It has a lot of the trappings, but it felt different too. It felt more fantasy. Yes. It felt more like a fusion of kung fu movie and fantasy with ties to the MCU rather than a straight up superhero movie. Even though Shang-Chi is a superhero, and now through most of the movie he doesn't have powers, right? He's just which he survives an awful lot for not having powers, but we're well beyond that being a criticism at this point.
We saw Black Widow. We saw
Black Widow. Well, and I mean, Black Widow and Hawkeye have been surviving shit for like 15 years now, so it's whatever. Suspension of disbelief. But now he has the 10 rings, so he is somewhat sort of powered. And I enjoyed the distinction in feel from the Marvel movies here.
Could not agree more. Yeah, I appreciated just how distinctive it felt. It felt respectful, and it felt, but it also, like you were saying, it didn't feel afraid to stretch its legs and kind of embrace Chinese history and Chinese kind of mythology. And, those mystical creatures were really cool. Like the whole mythical village, like that was super neat. And the dragon scale armor, that was cool. And it felt very original, but it had those kind of like small tie-ins where people just off the cuff would say, oh, when people can die just like that with a snap of a finger. And there was like a poster that was like post-blip trauma help or something like that.
Oh, I missed that a little bit.
But he was like walking around somewhere in Brooklyn or San Francisco. And it was just on the wall. But like you have those little call-ins, but it's very much its own film.
I also liked that. Oh, never mind. I forgot what I was going to say. I really had a reaction when we see this beautiful, pristine village, and then the first Shang-Chi and friends, and then the Mandarin drive up in their cars, and I'm like, no, stop that right now. Get that shit out of here. That does not belong here. It was very upsetting for me to see that.
Yeah. There was a little bit of product placement in this film.
But also it's just like this industrious like vehicle encroaching on this really beautiful location. I'm like, I don't like that. Stop it.
That's true. Yes, I didn't enjoy that either. It was very much like the man versus nature a little bit there.
I did enjoy the race through the forest though, where Morris has to give them directions, and then Trevor has to translate, and Katie has to drive, all in perfect synchronization. I also love the joke where Trevor's like, Morris is 90% of the way 90% sure he can get it started. He's like, oh, what's that 19%?
Like he just like, oh wait, no.
Looks like we lost you.
That was such a funny joke. I thought that was a really funny joke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great. It seems like we're losing you, so let's see if...
Yeah, it looks like a connection is unstable. Okay. But... let's see if it doesn't disconnect us. I'll let you know if it doesn't.
Okay. Well, I'll know.
Yeah, of course. One other thing that I kind of wanted to bring up was that post-credits scene kind of threw some confusion into my head about where this story fits in the timeline, because the Hulk, he had his arm in the bandage, but he wasn't the Hulk. He was back to Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
So I was kind of confused. Could you clarify that for me, maybe? Or
I don't.
Do you know?
I don't know, but I have my thoughts. One, definitely post Endgame. I think. I don't think we're going backwards anymore, which thankfully I'm kind of sick of that. But I have a couple theories. One, Bruce Banner is going to be in She-Hulk on Disney Plus, and it is probably more financially viable for them to have Mark Ruffalo on set rather than having to do a whole CGI thing for Professor Hulk. Two, a lot of people did not like Professor Hulk, and they did not like that the Hulk-Banner conflict was resolved off-screen. I kind of liked it, but I'd be fine with them going back to Banner and Hulk as separate entities. I think that dynamic is great, too. I wouldn't mind if he, flips back and forth, varying on the... or depending on his appearance. And also, it's probably easier for Ruffalo to get a performance in if it's just him. So.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and I bet they're just setting up an extra story there because Carol had long hair, if I'm remembering correctly. So she was like, oh, I got to go do this thing. So that's setting up a potential story for her. And he's got a potential story for why he's what he is now, So they're just setting up probably just more narrative. Cool.
Yeah, I really like that post-credits scene, though, because it does a lot of things. It brings Shang-Chi into the wider universe. It teases what'll probably be sequel bait with the Ten Rings calling out to someone. It shows a little bit more of Carol's personality because, for most of her film, she had amnesia, so we didn't really know her that well. And also, I like the line where it's just get my number from Bruce, and he's like, I don't have her number. I don't know why he said that. But
funny.
I really liked Banner's lines welcome to the circus. It's this is how the world is now. I've been in it for a while. Welcome to the party. And, it's...
you guys got this.
Welcome to the new world. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I love that. And then I love how the post-credit scene ended with them going out with Wong.
Yes. It's so funny.
Throw back to the first few scenes of the movie.
Great callback to the beginning. Yeah.
Be or we could go out.
Yeah, it's they've grown, but they're still the same people. And I like that two of our main protagonists now are still people who are let's just go get fucked up and sing karaoke and probably regret it the next day.
Yeah, there's still people who are going to go out and have fun and make mistakes. But yeah, heroes are still people. I like that. It humanizes them very much. So, but yeah, overall, I feel like this movie is terrific. Shang-Chi, the choreography is amazing. A few complaints that maybe I have is just, sometimes the action sequences got a little too shaky for me. It was difficult to see what was going on, kind of like the whole Jason Bourne kind of phenomenon.
Yeah.
And, one thing about the Ben Kingsley character is that, I like that he was back. I would have appreciated maybe just a little bit more from him. You know? Maybe just 2 more minutes on screen or 5 more minutes on screen doing something, having a bigger role in the movie than just being the guide to the forest with Morris.
I think they have a tight line to walk with that character too, because it's not about him, and if you give him too much time, he's probably going to piss people off. So it's probably... I agree. It's he was right on that cusp where it's you almost should give him a little bit of an arc, but then also maybe you should have pulled him back a little bit. You could have gone either way. So I don't know. I think the initial surprise of seeing him was the best part. And then...
Oh, yes. 100%. Yeah. Him and Morris...
And then him at the end when he's playing dead. It's it goes on just long enough to where you think he might have died. And he's no. It's just a performance. Just get down here with me and pretend you're dead.
Yeah, right. And I like that one scene. You didn't really see a lot of it, but he was showing them how to play soccer and was nope, that's a yellow card.
Oh, that
Back
was great.
Perfect. Yes. Introduce this sport to this village.
Yeah. It was funny. I liked it. It really strong action scenes, stronger than most Marvel movies have to offer. And, but I know there are going to be people who are you think this choreography is good. You haven't seen real kung fu movies. Like, yes, I have. Okay, and yet you're right. The choreography in Shang-Chi is not quite as good as it is in those movies, but it takes good elements of them and brings it into this franchise. So it's like that's what people like. I always get annoyed when I have to clarify this. It's like we are talking within the scope of this franchise. It's pushing the envelope. It's like, yes, all of this has been done before in film. We know. We're not dumb. We watch movies. But
yeah, just let us enjoy it for a second.
Yeah, it's like this is the biggest and most dominating franchise on the planet right now, for better or worse. It is nice to see it push its envelope farther than it did before.
Yeah, and try something different. And, I'm glad that we finally have the first Asian a superhero in the MCU. And, it's long overdue. And I appreciate that, they were also they incorporated a lot of female actors in this film too. I feel like there's a lot of good represent.
It's like the majority of the cast almost, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and like also we didn't even talk about like almost a large chunk of the movie is subtitled.
Yeah. I appreciated the subtitles and being like, this is great to just hear like Chinese. Is it? I assume it's Chinese, right?
I would assume it's Mandarin, but I don't know. So
clearly we're a little ignorant.
Well, I mean, we don't speak the language. I think
exactly.
Okay,
yeah, we don't. It's okay. Yeah.
But
yeah, go for it.
What I wanted to say about that is like, this is a mainstream film in the biggest franchise on Earth, made in America, forcing mainstream audiences to read subtitles and listen to foreign language in a blockbuster movie. It's like, that is amazing. Because I think it was Bong Joon-ho who said it, but it's like an entire array of films are available to you if you can just get over the little text at the bottom of the screen. And it's like, to see Marvel be allowed by Disney, because let's be real, to do that in this movie is huge. And we might be able to see more characters speak in languages other than English in these movies going forward, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to see those subtitles. Yeah, I agree. And I already kind of watched the majority of my media with subtitles on, just because sometimes I don't hear it correctly, or like it's just kind of, it's nice to read along sometimes. But,
yeah, I don't. In contrast, I really dislike subtitles in English. Obviously, for a foreign film, you have to. But
sure, yeah.
But there is a hump to get over with it, because for a long time, like, I would find myself reading the subtitles and missing the visuals. But it's like, it's just a different experience. Like, you read, you look, you read, you look, you read, you look, and it's a skill you can pick up pretty quick. And I appreciated that this movie did that.
Yeah, I would agree. It was nice to see those subtitles, and that we had characters speaking Chinese, and that it was great to see this kind of film coming from Marvel and Disney, and great female representation, great diversity representation, and just an all around amazing movie.
Yeah,
seriously, little to nothing to complain about with this film, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really have to say is a couple wonky CGI shots, and not CGI so much as compositing. I know there's a difference, but and maybe they could have found a beautiful location to place that village at the end instead of what is clearly a set. But
yeah,
because that was one of the main shots I noticed, was when like Shang-Chi is standing in the beautiful mountains and lake are in the background. I'm like, that doesn't look quite right, but that's it's fine. Like the rest of the movie is so good that I forgive it. It's one of my top tier Marvel movies, I think.
Yeah, it's up there, and I'm excited to see Shang-Chi in his next appearance, whatever that may be. If he's going to work with Doctor Strange, or if he's going to have like some kind of fun adventure on his own with Katie again, I'm all for it. He's fantastic character, and
I'd be cool with another standalone. Doctor Strange is getting a whole lot of play coming up pretty soon, which I am excited for. That Spider-Man No Way Home trailer looks super fun, but.
Yeah, that got me pumped.
Yeah.
Bringing back the old Sam Raimi characters.
Hopefully, they stick the landing on it, because
right.
Sony has not traditionally made it far with their Spider-Man franchises. So we'll.
Yeah.
Do you have any other thoughts on Shang-Chi before we transition?
No, I don't think so. Feel like I've already said as much as I can about this film. But great cast, great acting, great action. There's. Yeah. That's it for me.
I didn't hear any of that, but I will just say mine. But we got your audio, so it's fine. I really loved it. All the actors were great. I appreciated seeing the representation. The action is fun. The world is unique for the Marvel Universe. It really broadens the horizon of what stories that take place on Earth can feature. And, really, really fun time. Funny and serious at the right moments. It doesn't suffer from, like, bathos like some of the Marvel movies do, where the humor kind of undercuts the dramatic effect.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend. Go watch it.
Go watch it. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Let's transition into the final part of our episode today, where Dylan and I are just going to talk about things that we've been watching and reading. So,
other stuff.
Dylan, what have you been doing lately?
It's been a crazy couple weeks, so I haven't been diving into too much, but I'm still reading The Sandman. I'm reading.
Yes, that's right.
Volume 4 right now, which has a lot to do with hell and the dead and Lucifer. It's been very interesting. I don't want to give away like plot specifics because I think at some point you'll want to read this. But
yeah,
it's such an interesting book. I also dove back into Superman and Lois. I watched a couple more episodes of that.
Oh, nice.
Which is really, really great. It's such a good show. And there was a big twist in one of the recent episodes that added a whole new level to what's going on. And I found out the show airs on CW, and it has the same actors who play Superman and Lois Lane in the other CW shows. But it is produced by HBO Max. And that is why it looks so much better. And let's be honest, is written so much better than the other. And I have had years of affection for the Arrowverse. I have fallen off of it. But that is why the quality of this show is so high, is because it is an HBO production in reality.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
I also jumped back into Cyberpunk 2077 a little bit. I really want to love this game. I really do. And the story and the world is so good, but I just get so frustrated by the gameplay sometimes. It's like there is so much happening at all times. And like I had an incident the other day where I was playing. It's like they have these little things that pop up and like gangs are harassing civilians and you can hop in and help or not. And I'm like, okay, I want to go save this civilian. And I'm shooting, and there's just so much visual stuff going on. It's hard to distinguish what's going on. And I'm shooting at one of the gang guys, and he just suddenly leaps out of the way. And a stray bullet hits the person I was trying to rescue and kills them. And then it's like the cops have been alerted to this. I'm like, what the hell? It's not my fault.
God damn it.
It's not my fault.
That's some bullshit.
Yeah, it's just like... I don't know. There are a lot of systems in the game, and I think if I really sat down and played for like 3 to 5 hour sessions a couple times and got into the rhythm, I would get there. But right now, it's just overwhelming and too busy. But the story and the world is so interesting. Keanu Reeves has showed up finally.
That's cool.
And
nice.
He's like an anarchist rebel / rock star who died 30 years earlier.
Cool. I'm into that.
Oh. And he's now like on a chip in the main character's brain, and and the like, I don't know how this all pan out, but it seems like the main narrative driving force is that in a certain amount of time, Johnny Silverhand's personality will overwrite my character's personality, and the main character will be replaced by Johnny Silverhand. So it's like there's that ticking clock element to the plot, and I'm curious where it goes. And
that's cool.
Because in the marketing, they were talking about like Johnny Silverhand is always with you, but his motives are not necessarily aligned with yours, and you can choose to work with him or against him. And I'm like, okay, I really want to see where this goes. But
that's neat.
Enough about me. What have you been consuming in the last 2 weeks?
you'll be happy to hear that I've started Mistborn.
Yay!
I've only gotten through the prologue so far, but
Okay.
I'm gonna read some more later today. But yeah, that prologue really, I didn't remember all of it from the time that I did read it, so it was nice to refresh my brain and I was like, oh, this is gonna go a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Like the way it sets it up.
Yeah, the prologue introduces you to Kelsier, who's pretty major character. He's kind of like the mentor figure in the story. And
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was interested to know what he was doing, but yeah, I'm excited to get more into it. And I have another friend who saw that book and he was like, you gotta tell me when you finish it. So I'm glad that like I'm getting in on this fandom now.
Yes. Yeah, it's the way Sanderson writes his worlds and his magic is so fun. Like the way,
Yeah,
like
right.
I'm excited for you to get to a part where the main character starts to learn how to do all this stuff because it's just so. Like, we have in our head the picture of, like, what fantasy magic looks like, and this is so different than that. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
you to learn about it. What else you got
Yeah,
going on?
Maybe we'll have an episode on Mistborn someday in the future. I'm also been, as I've said in the last episodes, I've been working on Injustice. I'm like this close to finishing the first 5 years of the Injustice series.
Oh
So
my God.
Once I'm done with that, I think I'm gonna I might rent out the next one, like Injustice 2, but I don't know. I'll see how I feel. But I mean, it's really cool, and it's just it's just fun to read comics,
Cool.
and see these DC characters that are just kind of oh, I had no idea this one existed. I had no idea this guy existed. It's just cool.
Yeah.
And I've been just the other day I've been rewatching What We Do in the Shadows. Which, because the new season's coming out, the third season's coming out now.
Yeah, I've been seeing
And
ads for that.
So, just so everyone knows, What We Do in the Shadows is just like a show about vampires. It's based on the movie What We Do in the Shadows, which was shot like a mockumentary of what would it be like if vampires were real and we just kind of followed them around with a camera crew. And it's really funny. Like the characters there's werewolves and there's different types of vampires and the cast of characters is great. So I've been rewatching the second season so that way I'm caught up once we start the third one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically all I've been doing and just a little bit of camping.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, got to do that over the long weekend, but
Exactly.
where can we'll be back in 2 weeks, by the way, for another episode. I think should we do Free Guy?
Yeah, I'm down to do Free Guy if you
Let's do
are.
Free Guy. Yeah, we'll go watch Free Guy in the interim, and then we'll do that. So if you haven't seen Free Guy, apparently it's a lot of fun. So go check it out and come back and talk about it with us in 2 weeks. But in the meantime, Niles, where can people find you online?
People can follow me online on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. Just fun photography. I'll post occasionally and just kind of weird, fun things that I like to share with the world. Dylan, what about you? Where can people find you?
On Instagram at DylanD1026, on Twitter at D-Day Movies. You can find me on YouTube, also at D-Day Movies, and on Twitch as well sometimes. Eventually I'll be back.
Yeah.
Also D-Day Movies. And all of that is linked down below in the description of both the YouTube and podcast. And also, if you like this, if you're listening on an audio platform, please feel free to leave a review. Help us out. That boosts us up in the algorithm somehow. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. And there's a link to all of our various platforms where our show is distributed, so you can find your delivery mechanism of choice there. And with that, I guess we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Sounds great.
Bye.
Bye.